This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Friday, May 16th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The High Court seems intent on blocking Trump's restrictions on birthright citizenship. I'm Donna Warder.
A mother in Texas out of jail on bond, accused of helping her son plan a school shooting. I'm Clayton Neville.
South Africa says its president, Cyril Ramaphosa, will meet with President Trump at the White House next week. And Thomas Washington.
On Wall Street, Walmart warns that higher prices may be coming in the next 2 weeks because of tariffs. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
An audit of Maryland autopsies has shown that at least 36 in-custody police deaths should have been considered homicides. I'm Haya Panjwani.
An American basketball player has been arrested for allegedly attempting to smuggle illegal drugs into Indonesia. I'm Karen Shamas.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The U.S. Supreme Court has heard arguments on President Trump's executive order to block children born in the U.S. from becoming citizens if their parents are in the U.S. illegally or temporarily. Correspondent Donna Warder reports that executive order was not at the center of the argument.
Before the U.S. Supreme Court Thursday was not only President Donald Trump's executive order to deny citizenship to babies born to parents in the U.S. illegally or temporarily, but the issue of one federal judge having the power to issue a nationwide injunction. The High Court seems intent on blocking Trump's restrictions on birthright citizenship while looking for a way to scale back nationwide court orders coming from one federal judge. Justice Elena Kagan said birthright citizenship was an odd case to use to scale back nationwide injunctions. Justice Brett Kavanaugh pressed Solicitor General Dijon Sauer on how the federal government might enforce Trump's order.
What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn?
I don't think they do anything different. What the executive order says in Section 2 is that federal officials do not accept documents that have the wrong designation of citizenship from people who are subject to the executive order.
How are they going to know that?
The Trump administration has complained that judges are overreaching by issuing orders that apply to everyone instead of just the parties before the court. I'm Donna Warder.
Peace talks between Russia and Ukraine and Turkey have been delayed. Correspondent David Biller reports Russian leader Vladimir Putin announced he would not attend talks with Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
All week, everyone has been wondering whether Russia's President Putin would sit down with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy. Putin said that the two sides should reopen direct talks, and Zelenskyy said, "Okay, I'll fly to Turkey, meet me there face to face." But on Thursday, the Kremlin confirmed Putin would not be going, and instead, both sides have delegations in Istanbul. It remains to be seen whether they will in fact meet, but also on Friday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be in town, and his exact role in any talks, if they do happen, remains unclear. Whether there is hope for real progress also remains to be seen.
I don't think we're going to have a breakthrough here until the President and President Putin interact directly.
If you listen to Zelenskyy, he doesn't seem to think so. He has called the Russian delegation a sham, says it isn't empowered to make decisions. Now, the head of the Russian delegation told reporters Thursday afternoon that they've been briefed by both Putin and the defense minister, and that they have all of the competencies and authority to hold these negotiations. Now, whether what Zelenskyy says about the Russian delegation is true or not, them meeting would still be momentous. The two sides have not met face-to-face in over 3 years.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better with Sleep Number. Now, during the Memorial Day sale, all smart beds and bases are on sale, plus free home delivery, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. Mother helps son in shooting plot. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Temperatures in the south today soaring into what will feel like triple digits. With the Friday forecast, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A push of very strong high pressure well above the surface will allow for temperatures in parts of the southeast to take off, even above what was already a rather warm Thursday for some, with today's highs climbing well into the 90s in parts of South Carolina and Georgia in particular, under just some high clouds. Those temperatures, along with high humidity levels as dew points reach 70 degrees or more in some areas, will make it feel much hotter, with AccuWeather real-field temperatures reaching over 100 degrees this afternoon from the coastal plain of South Carolina toward the Savannah, Georgia area. To the north and especially the northwest of that zone, today brings a significant risk for severe weather as a powerful cold front shifts south and eastward through the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and parts of the Mid-Atlantic. Plenty of warm to hot and very moist air in place ahead of the front means an exceptionally high amount of energy to produce dangerous thunderstorms, and there may be a severe weather outbreak focused on areas from northern Tennessee into southern Indiana and much of Kentucky, where storms are the most likely to be severe with extremely strong winds and hail along with tornadoes. Places from far northeastern Texas to southern New Jersey, the southwestern half or so of Pennsylvania, the St. Louis area, and even some places like Chicago that face very strong storms on Thursday as well, will have at least some risk for severe weather. Elsewhere in the nation, showers of rain and high elevation snow dot the northwest today, perhaps reaching central Montana by day's end. Steady rain more likely from the Dakotas into northern Nebraska and Minnesota. Lots of sun is in store from much of California through the southwest. In Minneapolis, expect cooler conditions today with rain and drizzle and a high of 59. For Santa Fe, look for sunshine and a high of 78 today. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A Texas mother is charged with helping her son plot a school shooting. Correspondent Clayton Neville is following details.
33-year-old Ashley Rosalinda Pardo is out of jail on bond, charged with one count of aiding in the commission of terrorism in San Antonio. Her 13-year-old son charged with terrorism after showing up to Rhodes Middle School wearing a mask, camouflage jacket, and tactical pants. He left campus before eventually being found by police and arrested.
Juvenile first came to police attention after drawing disturbing images of his school and expressing a fascination with mass shootings.
San Antonio Police Chief William McManus told reporters that officers have been in contact with the family and were called directly by family members this week.
On May 11, a family member saw the juvenile with a live bullet. He claimed his mother bought him the bullet and tactical gear. The next day, the family member found loaded magazines and an improvised explosive device and immediately contacted police.
The chief said that Pardo bought ammunition, magazines, and tactical gear for her son.
The juvenile's mother, Ashley Pardo, had been contacted previously by police, the school, and CPS. She appeared to be dismissive and unconcerned with her son's behavior. Her behavior is not only dangerous, it's abhorrent, especially as a parent.
According to an arrest affidavit, Pardo bought the items with knowledge that they would be used to plan and carry out a crime. I'm Clayton Neville.
South Africa's president says he plans to come to the White House next week. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports this is on the heels of the U.S. taking in South Africans as refugees.
The meeting follows the Trump administration's admission of 59 white South Africans into the U.S. on Monday as refugees. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau.
The South African government has not done what we feel is appropriate to guarantee the rights of these citizens to live in peace.
And Trump has claimed Afrikaners are being persecuted in the black majority country. He issued an executive order in February cutting all U.S. funding to South Africa. Ramaphosa says the Trump administration's criticisms are based on misinformation about South Africa's laws, and whites are not being singled out. Ben Thomas, Washington.
Price hikes for consumers blamed on tariffs. That part of Friday Business with Jessica Ettinger when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Friday Business begins now with CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for the markets yesterday. Walmart warned it might be raising prices because of tariffs in the next 2 weeks. Here's Executive Vice President John David Rainey on CNBC.
We're wired to keep prices low for customers, but the level of tariffs that have been proposed is pretty challenging for all retailers, for suppliers, and certainly our concern is that consumers are going to feel some of that.
And here's CNBC's Carl Quintanilla, Jim Cramer, and David Faber.
CFO tells CNBC the tariffs are still too high, and as a result, price hikes could begin later this month. Jim, he told Courtney Reagan these tariffs, the magnitude is more than any retailer can absorb, more than any supplier can absorb.
Look, they have a very conservative management team. If they're complaining, can you imagine what the other guys are looking like? I mean, they're going to be able to hold the line better than anyone with the possible exception of Costco. Fact is that if anyone can hold the prices down, it's going to be Walmart.
Absolutely
They're going to hold them down more than everybody else.
Absolutely true.
More people applied for unemployment benefits last week than expected. And the continuing claims number also went up, suggesting it's taking people who are already getting jobless benefits longer to find their next job. Retail sales for April, not so hot.
Retail sales and what it says about the consumer, was not great. Retail sales only grew 0.1%. Big step down than what we got in March. But perhaps not surprising because March, remember, everyone was front-running the tariffs, so auto sales really jumped in March. If you look at where the weakness was in terms of spending, sporting goods, hobby bookstores, down 2.5%, big drop for the month. Department stores got hit, down 1.4%. We know gas stations were weak. It's not the strongest vote of confidence in the consumer.
CNBC's Sarah Eisen. Home builders are not very optimistic about their new construction housing business right now. Sentiment is the lowest in 3 years.
Builder sentiment in May fell sharply on the NAHB's index. Builders cite growing uncertainties stemming from elevated interest rates, tariff concerns, building material cost uncertainty, and the cloudy economic outlook. 78% of builders reported difficulties pricing their homes due to uncertainty around material costs. 34% of builders cut home prices in May. That's up from 29% in April and the highest level since December 2023.
That's CNBC's Diana Olick. On today's watch list, we get another read on the housing market and how much building the builders are going to do with housing starts and building permits numbers. We'll find out how executives are feeling about the economy with the Business Leaders Survey results. The WNBA season begins. And this morning, round 2 of the PGA Championship starts in Charlotte.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Friday Business. Officials in Maryland find discrepancies during an audit of autopsies of people who died while in police custody. Here's correspondent Haya Panjwani.
An audit of Maryland autopsies has shown that at least 36 in-custody police deaths should have been considered homicides. Investigators focused on 87 autopsies performed during the tenure of Dr. David Fowler, the former state medical examiner. Attorney General Anthony Brown announced their findings following a comprehensive review of such cases.
Our researchers determined that OCME was especially unlikely to classify a death as a homicide if the decedent was black or if they died after being restrained by police.
The review gave way to widespread concerns about Fowler's testimony in the death of George Floyd. Fowler testified for the defense at the 2021 murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Fowler had backed the widely rejected theory that Floyd died due to a sudden heart rhythm disturbance as a result of his heart disease. I'm Haya Panjwani.
U.S. basketball player arrested overseas for alleged drug smuggling. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. A U.S. basketball player has been arrested in Indonesia. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports they could face the death penalty.
Jared Dwayne Shaw from Dallas was arrested on May the 7th after police raided his apartment and found 132 pieces of cannabis candy. Shaw has played for several clubs in the Indonesian Basketball League since 2022 and signed a contract with Tangerang Hawk last year. The arrest followed a tip from the airport's customs that reported Shaw had received a suspicious airway package from Thailand, according to the airport police chief. Cannabis has been decriminalized in Thailand since November 2024. However, under Indonesia's anti-drug laws, Shaw faces up to life sentence or death penalty if found guilty. I'm Karen Shemas.
A hiker missing for several weeks, as we now learn from correspondent Lisa Dwyer, has been found safe and sound.
After being missing for nearly 3 weeks, Tiffany Slayton, a 27-year-old Georgia woman, was found safe inside a cabin at California's Vermilion Valley Resort. Resort owner Christopher Gutierrez spotted a cabin door open and a pair of shoes nearby when he arrived to begin reopening the resort for spring.
She pops out, didn't say a word, just ran up, and all she wanted was a hug.
Fresno County Sheriff's spokesman Tony Body says,
3 weeks? It's unheard of.
Slayton was hungry, dehydrated, but otherwise in good condition. Her overjoyed parents, Bobby and Fredrina Slayton, had this message for their daughter.
One of the best birthday presents that Tiffany could receive because tomorrow is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Tiffany!
I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The nickel was born on this date. Following the Civil War, the Congress passed legislation creating a 5-cent coin. The year, 1866. America in the Morning for Friday, May 16th, 2025 is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The Supreme Court hears arguments on nationwide injunctions and the Trump administration's desire to end birthright citizenship. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
A Wisconsin judge is finding herself on the other side of the bench. I'm Katie Clark with details.
The U.S. says there won't be peace between Russia and Ukraine until President Trump talks directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin. I'm Clayton Neville.
R&B singer Cassie faced cross-examination in the sex trafficking trial in New York of Sean Diddy Combs. I'm Ed Donahue.
Back after these messages. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments Thursday over an executive order signed by President Trump that would eliminate birthright citizenship in America. However, correspondent John Stolnis reports the arguments truly centered around whether lower courts should have the ability to issue nationwide injunctions against those kinds of executive orders.
While the underlying issue dealt with the future of automatic citizenship for people born in the U.S., the justices were actually focused on whether lower court rulings that blocked the president's executive order should be allowed to stand in the wake of nationwide injunctions. The majority of the court appeared intent on maintaining birthright citizenship in America, but also seemed open to limiting the use of nationwide injunctions. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, however, told Solicitor General John Sauer,
"Your argument seems to turn our justice system, in my view at least, into a catch-me-if-you-can kind of regime. It seems to me that your argument says we get to keep on doing it until everyone who is potentially harmed by it figures out how to file a lawsuit, hire a lawyer, etc."
Justice Elena Kagan followed up, noting without nationwide injunctions, the government would never be forced to take their cases to the high court.
I mean, let's assume that you lose in the lower courts pretty uniformly, as you have been losing on this issue, and that you never take this question to us. I mean, I noticed that you didn't take the substantive question to us. You only took the nationwide injunction question to us. I mean, why would you take the substantive question to us?
Justice Samuel Alito and other conservatives seemed more open to the idea of limiting nationwide injunctions by lower court judges.
They are dedicated and they are scholarly, and I'm not impugning their motives in any way, but sometimes they're wrong. And all Article III judges are vulnerable to an occupational disease, which is the disease of thinking that I am right and I can do whatever I want.
While the underlying issue, birthright citizenship, wasn't being argued yesterday, Justice Brett Kavanaugh did have some tough questioning for Sauer on how the administration would enforce it if the executive order was allowed to stand.
What do hospitals do with a newborn? What do states do with a newborn.
I don't think they do anything different. What the executive order says in Section 2 is that federal officials do not accept documents that have the wrong designation of citizenship from people who are subject to the executive order.
How are they going to know that?
This case was brought on an emergency basis by the Trump administration. The justices are expected to rule sometime next month. John Stolness, Washington.
A federal judge in Wisconsin made an appearance on the other side of the bench. Correspondent Katie Clark reports the judge is accused of helping an illegal immigrant avoid arrest.
A Wisconsin judge is in court, but this time she is on trial for allegedly helping an undocumented immigrant escape arrest by ICE agents. Hannah Dugan, a Milwaukee, Wisconsin County Circuit judge, appeared in court on Thursday entering a not guilty plea to the charges of aiding an illegal immigrant to evade arrest by ICE agents. She allegedly helped the man leave the courthouse through a back door, and he was able to successfully avoid immigration officials. She faces a felony count of obstruction and a misdemeanor count of concealing a person to prevent arrest. The Trump administration has been clear about their stance on those who harbor illegal immigrants, stating that they will prosecute those who obstruct the law with federal criminal charges. Dugan's legal team is looking to dismiss the charges and says that Trump's administration is overreaching. Her lawyers expect that her trial will not go longer than 1 week. She faces up to 6 years in prison and a $350,000 fine if found guilty. Her trial is expected to start July 21st. Currently, Dugan is on paid administrative leave from her duties, awaiting trial. I'm Katie Clark.
U.S. officials are hopeful but not optimistic about a peace deal getting done in Turkey this week between Ukraine and Russia in the two countries' ongoing war. Correspondent Clayton Neville provides an update.
Talks that were initially set for Thursday now set for today in Turkey as Russian President Vladimir Putin says he won't be there.
The level of team that was sent by the Russian side is certainly not indicative of one that's going to lead to a major breakthrough. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm 100% wrong. I hope tomorrow the news says they've agreed to a ceasefire. They've agreed to enter serious negotiations. But I'm just giving you my assessment, honestly.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to reporters.
We don't have high expectations. And frankly, at this point, I think it's abundantly clear that the only way we're going to have a breakthrough here is between President Trump and President Putin. It's going to require that level of engagement to have a breakthrough in this matter. I don't think anything productive is actually going to happen from this point forward until they engage in a very frank and direct conversation, which I know President Trump is willing to do.
Putin suggested last week that Ukraine and Russia should engage in direct talks, and earlier this week, President Trump said he could be a part of those talks. But with no Putin, that changed.
But we came because we were told that there might be a direct engagement between the Russians and the Ukrainians. That was originally the plan. You all heard the same thing. That was not to be the case, or if it is, it's not at the levels we had hoped it would be at.
President Trump told reporters that Putin didn't go to the talks because of a scheduling miscommunication, and Secretary Rubio insisting that the president is committed to ending the Russia-Ukraine war, but said the Trump administration can't fly all over the world and engage in meetings that aren't going to be productive. I'm Clayton Neville.
It's 17 till. Getting rid of transgender service members in the military when America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports that President Trump made an announcement involving Iran during his trip to the Middle East.
President Donald Trump has said the United States and Iran have sort of agreed to terms on a nuclear deal.
Iran has sort of agreed to the terms.
President Trump made the comments at a business breakfast in Qatar. He described the talks between American envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi as very serious negotiations for long-term peace and were continuing to progress. He later stopped at a U.S. airbase installation. Talking to troops there, he also stressed America's unwavering military strength.
When we're threatened, America's military will answer our enemies without even thinking about it. We have overwhelming strength and devastating force.
The president's next stop was Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates for the final leg of his trip, where he was greeted by local musicians. There he visited the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, the country's largest mosque, which he described as beautiful. I'm Karen Shamas.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, was cross-examined by the defense in his federal sex trafficking trial. Correspondent Ed Donahue has been following proceedings.
Defense attorney Anna Esteveo had Cassie read sexually explicit text out loud for the jury and suggested it was Cassie who ended Combs' career by making his behavior public through a lawsuit, not the other way around. Some of the text showed Cassie's anger with Combs and her admitted jealousy over attention he gave other women. They were also trying to show Cassie was a willing participant in his sexual lifestyle and pointed out while Combs could be violent, nothing he did amounted to a criminal enterprise. While reading their more affectionate conversations, Cassie testified Combs was charismatic, a larger-than-life personality. She also told jurors they weren't hearing the full context of the messages, that a lot was skipped over. I'm Ed Donahue.
The U.S. military is working out how they plan to identify and oust transgender service members. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
A new order directs U.S. military commanders to identify troops who are transgender or have gender dysphoria, then send them to get medical checks in order to force them out of the service. A new question about gender dysphoria is being added to that medical assessment. That's according to a senior defense official, laying out the new process of Donald Trump's directive to remove transgender service members from the military. Another official says the DoD has scrapped, for now, plans to go through health records. Instead, those who do not voluntarily come forward could be outed by commanders or others aware of their medical status. Active duty troops are being offered roughly double the amount of separation pay to voluntarily identify themselves, with a deadline of June 6th. Earlier this month, Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said about 1,000 troops had already come forward. I'm Jennifer King.
Walmart has announced plans to raise prices in its stores. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports the big box giant is blaming the increase on tariffs.
The nation's largest retailer has a reputation for making low prices a priority, but Walmart is now warning consumers that prices will rise for goods from bananas to car seats. Executives at the $750 billion company says that they are doing everything in their power to absorb the higher costs from tariffs ordered by President Donald Trump. Even with a pause on the trade war with China, tariffs are still the highest since the 1930s. Walmart warns that they expect more price hikes in June and July when the back-to-school season kicks into high gear. With slowing growth for retailers, Walmart says that its consumers have become cautious and selective. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Florida communities that have been adding fluoride to drinking water will now have to stop. Correspondent Donna Warder is in with that story.
Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a measure that bans local state governments from adding fluoride to their water systems.
Yes, use fluoride for your teeth, that's fine, but forcing it into the water supply is basically forced medication on people. They don't have a choice. You're taking that away from them.
Fluoride has been added to drinking water for generations to strengthen teeth and reduce cavities. But some Republican-led states have been pushing to ban fluoride in tap water following a push by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to do so. Some local governments in Florida already voted to remove fluoride from their water ahead of the statewide ban. I'm Donna Warder.
The FBI announces in a public service announcement that cyber criminals may be using AI to infiltrate government officials' personal and public accounts. Correspondent Chuck Palm has that in today's Tech Report.
A group of bad actors are using text messages and AI-generated voice messages to impersonate individuals in a scheme to gain access to personal accounts of state and federal government officials. The FBI released the information in a public service announcement saying that access to targets' accounts could be used to go after additional government officials or their associates and may be used to elicit information or funds. The FBI did not release additional information on how many people had received the messages, how many may be part of the campaign, or whether or not their activities were the work of financially motivated cybercriminals or just state-aligned actors. They did say, however, that the messages were used to establish rapport with their targets and encourage them to move to a separate platform where the hackers would steal their login credentials, such as their usernames and passwords. Bitcoin flat at 103,000 and Ethereum slightly down to 2,549. For more, find me at chuckpalm.com.
A Major League Baseball veteran has turned himself in on felony charges. Correspondent Gethin Coolball has details. Friday Sports is in on America in the Morning. Let's welcome back Robert Workman.
The Twins took their 11th consecutive game on Thursday, 4-0 over the Orioles. Chris Paddock in the disco tossed a six-hitter. Byron Buxton homered, but then had to leave the game after colliding with Carlos Correa on a pop fly. Both players are now in the concussion protocol. Pitchers duel in Texas. The Rangers blanked the Astros 1-0. Jacob deGrom and Sean Armstrong allowed 5 hits. Hunter Brown went the distance on a 3-hitter for Houston, but Jake Berger's solo shot made the difference. Just the kind of game an old catcher like Rangers manager Bruce Bochy likes.
Everything we thought this game would be. Runs would be the premium. I didn't know it would be one, but I mean, what a game Jacob threw, and their guy, I mean, he's so tough too.
Last night, the Dodgers drubbed the A's 19-2. Shohei Ohtani had 2 of LA's 5 dingers and drove in 6. Rays battered the Blue Jays 8-3. Brandon Lau had 2 of Tampa Bay's 4 homers. Reds ripped the White Sox, and the Braves nailed the Nationals. Stanley Cup playoffs, second round in the East. The Hurricanes slipped past the Capitals 3-1 to win that series in 5 games. Andrei Svechnikov snapped a 1-1 tie with 2 minutes left to send Carolina to the Eastern Conference Finals for the second time in 3 years. Out west, the Jets stayed alive with a 4-0 win over the Stars. Connor Hellebuck made 22 saves. Dallas still leads the series 3-2 and can advance to the Western Final with a win at home on Saturday. NBA Conference semifinals in the West, the Nuggets topped the Thunder 119-107, sending that series to a decisive Game 7 on Sunday in Oklahoma City. Nikola Jokic had 29 points and 14 rebounds. At golf's second major of the year, Jonathan Vegas fired a 7-under par 64 to hold a 2-stroke lead after the first round of the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow in Charlotte. The big name struggled. World number 1 Scotty Scheffler is 5 strokes back at 2 under. Defending champ Xander Schauffele finished +1, and Rory McIlroy, fresh off his Masters win, was 3 over par and sits 10 shots off the lead. No horse racing Triple Crown this year, with Kentucky Derby winner Sovereignty sitting out Saturday's Preakness in Baltimore. Journalism, who was the favorite at Churchill Downs before losing by a length and a half, is an 8-5 pick tomorrow at Pimlico. That's Friday Sports.
Young girls' nightmares, a premonition? When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. At the box office, an innovative slasher franchise gets a new installment. Here's entertainment correspondent Kevin Carr.
It's taken more than a decade, but death is back for a 6th helping in Final Destination: Bloodlines.
Death is coming for our family.
The story follows a college student who has visions of a catastrophic accident 60 years ago.
I saved a lot of lives that night.
Everyone needs to get off the dance floor!
Lives that were never meant to be saved. But Death doesn't like it when you mess with his plans.
She learns her grandmother cheated death in that accident, and now the Grim Reaper is trying to get rid of everyone who survived and their families.
It all started with Grandma. Death is coming for us because we were never supposed to exist.
If you've seen any of the Final Destination movies, you know what you're getting into.
Won't stop till he finishes the job.
The characters are served up on a silver platter to face their gory and gruesome demise in complex Rube Goldberg situations. And if you're a little sick and twisted like me, you'll find some humor in it.
So, which one of you is next?
The writing is passable, loaded with cliches and silliness, but silliness is kind of the key to a film like this.
All of this fits together. We might have a chance.
Creative, bloody, and fun, it's not for the faint of heart. And it also has a sweet moment where audiences get to say a final goodbye to horror icon Tony Todd.
Good luck.
Final Destination: Bloodlines gets 3 lawnmowers out of 5. I'm Kevin Carr, and that's the way I see it.
History's being made with this year's Tony nominations. Correspondent Haya Panjwani explains.
Known for TV series like Lost and Hawaii Five-0, Daniel Dae Kim is the first Asian nominee for Best Leading Actor in a Play in the Tonys' 78-year history. That's for his work in the play Yellowface, the semi-autobiographical show which ran last fall at the Roundabout Theater. He spoke to the AP about what it means to be Asian and nominated.
It'd be a huge surprise if I won, but I will say that even getting the nomination is a win, especially when you put it in the context of our community and what this means for Asian Americans.
He admits it's very surprising and a little sad that he's the first Asian nominee.
The barrier we really want to break is to actually have someone win. And hopefully that happens sooner rather than later, whether it's me or not.
To this day, there also has never been an Asian nominee for Best Leading Actress in a Play. Yellowface also scored nods for Best Play Revival and Best Performance by a Featured Actor in a Play. I'm Haya Panjwani.
That's our show for today, Friday, May 16th, 2025. America This Week is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.